that's all I understand about single window. But if I can do in 2 windows what I can do in one, why do I want to do 2? I know that you've done this in a number of places. The first one I heard about was Malaysia, I think. And there are a number of other countries that have gone this way. So I'll leave you to tell us about the prospects for this. But
how to ensure that border crossing is efficient is critical for getting investment and trade. And for that, capacity building of customers is the most important thing. Therefore, I asked support from the highest authority, and 2 years later, now we got it. And so first of all, I'd like to express my special thanks to His Excellency President and you and other political leaders to ensure that customs plays an important role in improving economic competitiveness of Ghana to make sure that the Ghana economy is well integrated in the global supply chain. And also, yesterday we had a very encouraging meeting of National Single Window Forum. And there are many stakeholders, not only customs, but we are graced by Minister of Transport, Trade, Finance, and Agriculture. And all those ministries and agencies are supportive. And also business community were there. Because customers are at borders, but it is not only customs, but the other ministries and agencies have a stake in border control. And also all business are doing trade, and they have a high stake. And I was happy to hear that from the Chamber of Commerce of Ghana, a representative, that he saw already improvement in customs functionality since September the 1st, meaning that, taking over that function and, inspection rate or delaying time has been reduced. So this is already a good part. But trade facilitation goes beyond not only customs, but involving others as well. So coordination with other ministries and agencies at border is important, and it is about sharing data from business. And then each ministry or agency can look at that, and because they have to analyze the risks. And then we can provide coordinated answer to trade, that whether we need inspection or not. So it's really one-stop inspection at the borders, joint inspection. So this is a very good step that customs embarked on together with other ministries and the whole government as whole government venture. Because of this involvement of almost all ministries and agencies and business, what we need is the political will to engage that national single window. And I could clearly see that political will exist here, and also partnership with business. And business is willing to work with government and to improve that efficiency. This is great. And finally, what is important is investment in people, that both in the public and the private sector, they need to be aware of how to comply with those trade rules, laws. And so I think that this conference is a start of a journey involving other business and government agencies to improve investment climate of Ghana. So I'm very much happy with that. World Trade Organization has adopted a trade facilitation agreement, and he's a specialist in that case. But 80% customs part. So customs should modernize to implement that WTO. Incorporates WTO standards that is called the Revised Kyoto Convention, which is about the international standard of custom procedures, simplification and harmonization. analyze the gap. Still there is a gap. How to move forward in terms of revised Kyoto Convention and trade facilitation agreement, which goes together. And now you have a very good platform involving all ministries, and Ghana is committed to facilitating trade and reforming the border procedures. We can do little, but now when the most important part is achieved. So WCO will continue to provide assistance in the form of training or advice. Important direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellency, it is certainly my pleasure to be here in Accra, and I'm greatly appreciative of being received here. As highlight the requirements of the World Trade Organization's Trade Facilitation Agreement and how this relates to the part of the ongoing Doha round. And as you know, there's a ministerial conference in Kenya, Nairobi, starts in another week or so. But the Trade Facilitation Agreement was adopted, and the Trade Facilitation Agreement is about trade facilitation, and a part of trade facilitation is a single window. And the single window is in fact covered in one article of the Trade Facilitation Agreement. But of course, trade facilitation extends beyond the single window, and there are a number of other obligations also that are covered in the Trade Facilitation Agreement. Obligations that relate to transparency, to the publication of information, the provision of information to the public and to the trading community, obligations that relate to fees, and obligations that relate to procedures for importation and exportation and for transit. All of these elements are part of the Trade Facilitation Agreement, and Ghana will be, as a member of the WTO, required to implement the Trade Facilitation Agreement. The agreement has not yet entered into force. It is now in the process of being ratified by countries, and it will enter into force when 2/3 of the WTO membership has ratified. So far, 53 have done so, and it requires 108 members to ratify. Ghana, I'm sure, is in the process of preparing its ratification, and I'm sure, I think 3 countries from this continent have already done so. Botswana, Mauritius, and Nigeria have ratified. Those 3 have ratified, and others are in the process. So I think it would behoove Ghana to look at carrying out that ratification process in good time. There's also an obligation to submit commitments under the Trade Facilitation Agreement, commitments that a country will implement when the agreement comes into force. And a number of African countries have in fact submitted those commitments, and others across the world have done so. And I think that's also another area that Ghana should be looking at. It may be very good to link that to the gaps analysis, because you need to submit commitments that you are in a position to implement when the agreement comes into force. The other commitments on the agreement, you will have time to implement, but you need to select commitments that you are in a position to implement immediately and do so. And it is good to do so because it creates goodwill, and also for the other commitments that you have not implemented initially, you will have the opportunity to seek assistance, capacity building assistance from organizations like the World Customs Organization and the World Bank, etc. So I think that process is one that Ghana should engage in as fully as it can, because it links in very neatly to the establishment of a single window, the process of engaging stakeholders and all the agencies, not just customs, and the whole process of making trading more efficient.
The problem that we have, they have them in a bigger.
Big country also has.
So they, for example.
Is there a way in which you can confirm the value of imports? I think that the valuation issue is one
Yes.
of the major ones.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately for us, Excellency, I was just like the Secretary General said,
following the revised Kyoto Convention, trade facilitation. In our own case, we have more of us, Ghana and African countries, we have this issue. We are asked to run and not to scratch. But in our own case, we ask, if you want to run, you run. If you want to scratch, you scratch. But in our own case, we are scratching and running.
Okay.
In most of the developed countries, the emphasis is more to trade facilitation as opposed to revenue generation. But we are faced with two issues here: revenue generation, trade facilitation, and we are, like my own country, our own is compounded by traders that are not compliant. That's why
we've been working with Nigeria government and now Ghana government to look at how we can facilitate trade whilst improving revenue collection, and the third element, which is border security as well. And usually at various times, these three mandates tend to compete. Therefore, it's very important that we come together in a collaborative effort to ensure that we achieve the balance between those three. And with international trade, it's not just about the nation, it's about your trading partners as well. So to have Nigeria, who is a key partner in the region, being a part of this is already one step ahead. Also, we have great support from all the ministries, the Ministry of Transport, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Finance, and Ministry of Trade. And then coming below, all the departments and agencies who are working extremely well together so that this is now a national agenda. It's not about one agency or one ministry, but it's looking at the economic growth and the competitiveness of Ghana. We worked on the first phase of both projects in Nigeria and Ghana was on valuation, classification, and risk management, and customs taking over those core functions from the outsourced companies. And as DCG Umar mentioned, valuation of used goods is usually a complex item. However, if you have systems and you have good databases, you can at least establish the threshold within a period. According to the GATT rules, you cannot use historical price values of more than 90 days. So what we need to do is we need to have data integrity of what is coming in, because it's what is coming in that will eventually feed the dynamic database. Whilst you benchmark against external prices, like Reuters would have some commodity pricing, so you can have some reference pricing. You can also have external verification companies where if you don't have the data in your database, you can then call, or even customs, because your import declaration will be someone's export declaration. So from customs to customs, you can verify on that particular transaction. So to be able to achieve that, you need collaboration at all levels, and you need the right tools and the right systems and the right mindset of the people to ensure that you have good information coming in. As was mentioned earlier, compliance is a real issue. So if you have traders who are prone to doctoring invoices or doctoring any of their information, then you have the rubbish coming in. However, if you use IT to reconcile different documents, you might note where the discrepancies are. So you might see one value on a bill of lading for the same transaction, a different value on the invoice, a different value on all the other and then suddenly you realize that, okay, this is a non-compliant trader. So you can now focus your scarce resources on the problem whilst you facilitate the compliant trader. So that's what we're working towards, to ensure that we have collaboration at all levels. And so far it's been excellent. The support has been really good at all levels, and we look forward to the journey we've just embarked on.
It does seem to be.
If I may, this is the area that we are working on, because as she explained, someone's import declaration should be someone's export declaration.
Yeah.
So what we are trying is connect customer administrations and to facilitate exchange of information. But
Yeah.
again, this requires legal framework and well, technological platform. Now that in Ghana it will be there. So how best that we can exchange information, and that is what I'm talking to this region. That ultimately, why not exchanging information,
Yeah.
and so that you can both win that fight against commercial fraud.
Okay.
But at the same time, technology is important, but in the end, it is the people who manage the technology.
Yeah.
Therefore, early next year, I'll organize trainers training for valuation purpose, inviting both Ghana and Nigeria together, because those two countries have similar problems that I find. Therefore, first, we will invest in customs officers who are well trained, and then that knowledge should be extended to business, that how to comply with the valuation.
Okay.
And also providing incentive and benefit to business if they comply with that obligation. So this is why we recommend authorized economic operators that if customs see that you are the honest trade, then we will give you facilitation. So they will benefit from that. And also, instead of doing control at the borders, we'll usually pass through, and after that, we'll do that post-clearance audit, perhaps once or twice a year, to visit their premises to see if their accounting books are okay or not. So this kind of providing incentive to those who tend to make fraudulent and the more compliant trader is important. And in that way, we can focus on those lower end of compliance ladder. And at the same time, using technology, we are now trying to train people that with that technology, you can have more data. For example, trade statistics data, and what kind of goods are traded, and those goods, what kind of tariff are applied. Then you can calculate. This should be the real revenue that you can have. So there must be some gap. That kind of revenue gap is you can start talking to business that this is what we have and how you can get along with our compliance culture. So, and this single window I see very encouraging is that, traders are expressing their views on those measures that I explained yesterday. And there are, of course, resistance. But in the end, it is for their benefit that customs is trying to address this issue is important. But in the end, it is, especially in Africa, illicit legal flow out of African continent is there. I'm asked by UN that do something, that to train customs that having good intelligence, that to identify, come on, this is rather unusual transaction. And then you can start investigation. But those who are, the majority who are, legitimate trade, you provide the facilitation so that you can have a more, business-friendly environment here.
Again, I'm back in valuation. I think that's a very important part of the work that customs does here. Is there any way in which your system can query other national databases? For example, if somebody is selling tomato paste to Nigeria and Gambia and Ghana and so on, and the value that comes here is $1 per ton, can we query the database of that company that's selling to all these other countries to find out how much they are valuing those things, so that we can then get a much better value? Exist among the customs authorities of ECOWAS, for example, where if one company in Papua New Guinea is selling a particular thing to all of us, we can check and make sure that some traders here are not facilitating themselves against us.
The shipper has an obligation to give us the right information. So when they have to send that information directly in advance electronically into our system, that also helps a lot. Of course, there are some countries, China, for example, you can't trust the importer because their laws are a bit more, I think, relaxed on issues of correct information and so on. And then also, our system is now linking up with the Bank of Ghana so that the LC is established. Invariably, most of the big consignments, we transfer the resources from our system through Bank of Ghana or through the banking system to pay for the goods. So once we know the value of the LC, it becomes a bit difficult for the importer to then claim that if you transfer 1.5 million for a particular consignment, it becomes difficult for you to now say that the value of the goods is say 900,000. So that has become a very important source, and already the preliminary work done has shown. I know there are one or two companies that we are now having problems with, just because what they transfer to pay for the goods is much higher from the information on the letters of credit than the values that they declared. So that
was there this week as well, and next year very early we'll organize that seminar, and also how to make planning sequences necessary, as you suggested. What is the way forward? That is what we try to advise based on what has happened in other parts of the world.
Great.
Even next week, the commissioner is going for the policy meeting in
Dominican Republic.
Dominican Republic, just next week. So they will meet today.
Well, thank you very much for coming. Thank you for explaining to me. I will put some pressure on this man to find out what has happened to the process, and also try and help out in this way. So thank you, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your stay. I'll tell the president when he arrives that.
Yes, please convey our appreciation to the president.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh yes, maybe a group picture.
Are you okay?
I'm okay, sir.
Thank you.
Sorry.